The reviews are in, and Todd Vandenberg and I, Rob Steele, are here to tell you what they are. If you can put up with Todd using the phone because Comcast has decided that cable doesn't need to have internet today. Right? Because that makes sense. Which, that might make it a good thing that you watch the movies beforehand. Because I know one of the things you wanted to talk about.
It does.
You wanted to talk about this third season of Daredevil, which is a streaming thing. You can't go to a theater to see that.
You can't. And I'm glad that I finished watching it earlier in the week, because it would be really tiny watching it on my phone. And it would cost me a lot of data if I did it that way too. So
that too. So
Daredevil season 3. Let's preface this by, we had talked last week about how Netflix has canceled Luke Cage, and excuse me, and they also canceled Iron Fist, which thanks for canceling that. And then some stories had come out that some data companies doing some surveys, because Netflix never releases information, that the audiences had dropped bigly for both Iron Fist and Luke Cage, and that they'd actually dropped for Daredevil. They'd actually dropped for all of the Marvel Netflix shows. But luckily, Daredevil had not dropped nearly as much as the others, proportionally, even though it had dropped. So Daredevil looks safe for now, which is good, because to me, Daredevil season 3 is the best season yet. And I really loved the first 2 seasons, but this is just amazing. It reintroduces Kingpin, which is great, because Kingpin is, to me, one of the best 3 Marvel villains in any of the various formats, in large part because Vincent D'Onofrio is just incredible.
Okay.
And brings in a new villain, a guy who becomes Bullseye. It's hardly a spoiler alert, because if you just click on anything about Daredevil season 3, Bullseye comes up. So he gradually becomes Bullseye, which is very, very cool. I love the way they did that. The best thing about Daredevil season 3 to me is the fact that take away Daredevil. Take away all the superhero trappings. This would be a fantastic series to watch, just for the relationships between Matt-Murdoch and his friend Foggy and Karen. And then, of course, he's got conflict because guys don't like him, like Kingpin and the guy who becomes Bullseye. But just the character arcs are just incredible in this. And it's just such a well-written show and so well-performed. Seriously, if it wasn't a superhero show, I would watch this thing again anyway. Just because it's so well done. And you care so much about what happens to these characters. And then throw in, oh yeah, it's Daredevil. Daredevil, and has these amazing freaking fight scenes. Including, if you may not have heard about it, which is why you're listening to us, hopefully, a fight scene in a prison with Matt-Murdoch. Because he's not there as Daredevil. He's there as Foggy, but that's you'll get to that when you watch it.
It's a storyline.
An 11-minute fight scene in one cut. Oh my God. This is why Iron Fist didn't work. Because they set the bar so freaking high with Daredevil on some of these set pieces, these fight scenes, and they went above it again. Unbelievable. Just the level of artistry, seriously, in this sequence. And the series is full of it. And not full of it like I'm full of it, but full of excellence. Just can't recommend season 3 enough. It's just fantastic. And if any actor deserves to move from the small screen to the big screen, I had said on the show that was on earlier in the week, Charlie Cox really deserves to go. And man, that a Spider-Man Daredevil team up versus the Kingpin would be fantastic, because man, they've done that story I don't know how many times in the comics.
Lots.
Yeah, so that would be awesome, and it would introduce Charlie Cox to a bigger audience, which he really deserves, because he nails the character of Daredevil / Murdoch like Tom Holland has named Spider-Man, or even better, like Robert Downey Jr. is Iron Man, like Chris Evans is Captain America. I mean, he is it. And, eventually someone else will replace him, because that's how things go. But man, he is perfect in that role. So can't recommend Daredevil 3 enough. Just an awesome show.
I would like to apologize for my phone going off. I thought I had turned it off like you're supposed to do when you go into a theater. And if you were wondering, yes, that was the Babylon 5 doorbell. It's my message tone. Anyway, not the point. Yes, Daredevil 3. I have not finished it yet. I have started it, and I'm liking it. A lot more than what I reviewed this week, but I still liked what I reviewed this week, which is kind of weird. And I'm going to go back to the way I did it last week. So I did the birthday thing with Ralph Batsky, because yes, it's what, Friday? And I looked at IMDb and said, all right, whose birthday is today? And it was, we're on Nickelodeon, don't care. So I went back earlier in the week, and back on Tuesday was Sally Field's birthday. And if you're, it's the 6th of November if you're listening to it sometime other than what I would consider this week. So I said, what Sally Field movie can I do? Because she's done a lot of them, and I've seen nowhere near all of them. But there was one from 1989 that IMDb classifies as a comedy, drama, romance, and not the kind of thing we have ever reviewed on this show before. But I remember Steel-Magnolias. I have seen this a couple times because I have, let's see, 89, I've had girlfriends back then. I've got a wife now, and every so often I have to sit through movies like this. Steel-Magnolias, a spectacular cast to start with, because you got Sally Field, Dolly-Parton, yeah, okay, fine, Shirley-Maclaine, Daryl-Hannah, Olympia-Dukakis, Julia Roberts, Tom-Skerritt. Yes, there are men in the movie. Sam Shepard, Dylan McDermott, just a stellar cast. My one complaint with the movie, to me, and this is just to me, I'm sure a lot of people love it, but to me the storyline was rather dull and kind of boring. What made up for it, though, was the acting in the movie, and frankly, the quips, because they're all through if the way I looked at this movie, and you kind of have to think of it as kind of like an hour and a half long Golden Girls episode, only there's 6 of them and they're all Blanche. You've seen the movie. Am I wrong? I don't think
no, you're right.
I don't think I am. I mean, there's some of the wonderful things that they've said in this movie when they're talking about other people they don't like. One of my favorite lines in this was, let's see, what was it? The nicest thing I can say about her is that all her tattoos are spelled correctly. I'm like, oh, geez, wow.
Which is a tribute to the tattoo artist, not her, really. No.
It is. I think at the end of the movie, one of them dies. There's a spoiler. Here's a couple other that you won't be able to tell, because Sally Field delivers this monologue about how she's really going to miss the person and how she's so angry right now. Mm-hmm. And Olympia-Dukakis grabs Shirley-Maclaine and goes, you want to hit something? Here, hit this, and holds up Shirley-Maclaine. And I'm like, Jesus. I know she's been kind of an unlikable character through the whole thing, but
kind of.
Damn. Yeah. You remember that description I gave you from the forthcoming book that's coming? I wanted to use that word, but I can't because this is a family show. That's
you can't. But she is. Yeah, she is.
I thought it was a good movie and worth seeing. Not for the storyline, but for guys who look at this and go, "That's a chick flick." Yes, it is, but you know what? It's still kind of fun to watch.
It's really fun to watch. There's tons of good stuff, and the storyline, it could have been more plot, I guess, but I don't. To me, that's not the point of the movie. The point is, like you said, it's the interaction of those characters, and what a fun movie, and it makes me happy just to think of armadillo cakes. Oh my God, it's a great movie.
It is.
Hopefully one that they don't remake next year because it's its 30th anniversary.
Oh, no.
Because that would be kind of weird.
It would be, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Don't do
But
that. Just
seriously,
release it.
this is a really, really good movie. And we don't do enough reviews of movies like that, which is a shame, and maybe we'll change that. So, but yeah, that's Steel-Magnolias is great.
And all the characters in it are now as old as the director of the movie that you're going to review to end the show? Question mark ish.
Well, they're not quite that old.
Not the best segue, but it's best I can come up with at the moment.
He is dead. There's an interesting, very interesting experiment, I guess you'd say, on Netflix called The Other Side of the Wind. It is Orson Welles. Now it's Orson Welles' last film. He was working on this movie in the 70s, like from 1970 through 75 at least. And because Orson Welles had problems finishing films at times. Sometimes because of himself, usually because of studio interference, and at times because of money. And in this case, it was money. It's a very strange film because it's about a movie director who's basically been in exile by choice over in Europe for a few decades, comes back to Hollywood, tries to get financing to finish his last film. So basically, it's Orson telling the story of what he's going through as he's making this movie, which is really, really weird. Although he claimed it wasn't autobiographical, which is like, sure.
It was a feature telling of Roman Polanski.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I hope.
It is definitely, no, it is not. It's definitely a very strange film, though, because the film he's making within the film, which is also called The Other Side of the Wind, is an art house European style road movie, and it's about the relationship between a young guy and this extremely attractive young lady that he picks up, who is nude in, I would say, probably 3/4 of her scenes in the movie within the movie, which is also weird because it's Orson Welles' it was his paramour at the time, who was going to be his wife and wasn't his wife, but anyway. And she also is the co-author of the film, which is also interesting. So you get this weird art house film that really doesn't work. And Welles said that it was really kind of more of a parody of the European art house film style, which works that way because it's not good. It's pretty much sucks. But the problem is you spend a lot of time, like a third of the movie, watching this happen. It's like, ugh. The part that works, though, is the bigger piece, which is about the film director who comes back from exile, played by John Huston, who, of course, was a great film director, and about Orson's age. And Huston and Welles were great friends. Huston is the one part of the whole thing that works because he's terrific. He is absolutely terrific. He is actually filming this mostly before, but also somewhat after he was in Chinatown. So if you haven't seen Chinatown, and go watch that. Like, stop listening and pull it up and watch it, and then come back in a couple hours.
Click pause, and come back to us. But yes,
yeah, Huston was a great, one of the best directors ever, and also a great actor. So he's fantastic in this movie. Tons of directors from that time period are in the movie. Peter Bogdanovich is like the other main character who was a confidant, a protege of Welles. Not a very good actor, unfortunately. That's part of the problem with the movie is most of the people in the movie, I'd say several of the people in the movie aren't actors. Part of the fun part, though, is some of the actors that do show up a couple of them were with Welles from the days of Mercury Theater in the 30s. And it's cool to see them pop up in this movie. And they are very good. It's worth watching just for the experience. I wouldn't say it's a good movie. Sadly, it's not a great movie because, again, too much of the time is devoted to what Welles intended to be a bad parody. Not a bad parody, but a parody of bad Euro films. And it's hard to watch, frankly, because it sucks. But it's supposed to. But so much, to me, that was just a mistake, devoting so much time to it. Now, the other problem comes in, how much time would Welles have devoted this? Because apparently he's filmed like over 100 hours. Now, this was put together by Peter Bogdanovich, among other people, who wanted to complete his work. And there was a rough cut that existed, but it was also a rough cut that was done by his director of photography, not by Welles. And since my internet is down, I don't have access to it right now. There is a companion documentary on Netflix about the making of this film, which is much more enjoyable than the film itself, because it has lots of background information about the film, lots of interviews with Welles. That is fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. Other Side of the Wind, watch it, but be prepared to just see something just for the fact that, okay, that was cool, but as in this part of the movie was cool, but the rest of it was just kind of like, eh. But the documentary is terrific, and it's by the same gentleman who did the recent documentary about excuse me, about now I'm blanking out, the children's show.
Mr. Rogers?
Mr. Rogers, yes, thank you very much. Won't You Be My Neighbor? The director of the documentary, Won't You Be My Neighbor? So the documentary is awesome. The Other Side of the Wind is good, but extremely uneven, which sadly kind of fits in with some of Welles' work. But so, yeah, I recommend both, but probably do watch the documentary first, actually. That's what other reviewers had recommended, and I went the other way, which, not that it was a problem, but it does help to see the documentary first, I think. So, Other Side of the Wind, it's worth watching. The documentary, you definitely want to watch the documentary. Oh, They'll Love Me When I'm Dead, I believe is the name of the documentary. So, both on Netflix for the majority of the world that has Netflix, and then, of course, there are a few of us who don't.
Comcast. Damn it.
But anyway. So, worth watching.
So, let's see. We've got, Daredevil, go see in your living room. Steel-Magnolias, go see in your living room. I believe it is also on Netflix. And The Other Side of the Wind, which... see the documentary first and make up your own mind. First.
Yeah, and if you're a film buff, you'll enjoy it. If you're not, if you just you like movies because you want to be entertained, honestly, you probably don't want to see The Other Side of the Wind.
Stick with Steel-Magnolias.
Absolutely, stick with Steel-Magnolias, because that's a great movie. See, Other Side of the Wind is interesting for film buffs.
So that leads us quite nicely into the closing line of the show. Hey, go see a movie.
That's pretty much it.